High in the remote peaks of a forgotten land, at a place where the winds carried whispers of ancient wisdom, lay a crucial fork in the path for all seekers of reliable knowledge. A weathered signpost, carved by unknown hands, marked the divergence. One path named the ascent of reason, the other the journey of experience. Many pilgrims arrived at this juncture, each hoping to find the most trustworthy way to understanding. There was Master Eris, a logician of unparalleled intellect. His mind was a fortress of syllogisms, his arguments as sharp as the mountain air. He chose the path of reason without hesitation, believing that pure thought, untainted by the messy unpredictability of the senses, was the only true guide. He envisioned reliable knowledge as a perfect crystal, formed in the crucible of intellect, reflecting universal truths. Beside him stood Mara, a seasoned traveler and keen observer. Her hands were calloused from touching the world. Her eyes held the reflections of countless sunrises and human faces. She chose the path of experience, convinced that reliable knowledge grew from the fertile soil of direct perception, from tasting, touching, and living the world's realities. For her, knowledge was a tapestry woven from the vibrant threads of sensory encounters and lived moments. Then there was Jian, a young apprentice, torn between the two masters and their compelling arguments. He saw the elegance in Eris's logic and the richness in Mara's encounters. He wondered if reliable knowledge truly demanded such a stark choice, or if, perhaps, the two paths might converge at some unseen summit. Eris ascended into the mists, his mind wrestling with abstract principles, deducing complex theorems, building intricate systems of thought. He found great clarity in the rarefied air of pure logic, but the world below became a distant, almost irrelevant, abstraction. Mara journeyed through the valley, her senses alive. She learned the language of the river, the wisdom of the forest trees, the joys and sorrows in the eyes of the villagers. Her knowledge was rich, textured, and deeply human, but sometimes she struggled to find universal patterns or overarching principles amidst the sheer diversity of her experiences. Years later, Eris descended from his misty peaks, his face etched with the intensity of profound thought, but also a certain remoteness. Mara returned from her valley wanderings, her spirit enriched by countless encounters, but also carrying the weight of the world's complexities. They met again at the signpost, where Jian, now older and having walked parts of both paths, awaited them. An old hermit, who seemed to be part of the mountain itself, emerged from a nearby cave. "You have both sought reliable knowledge," the hermit said, his voice like the wind through ancient pines. "Eris, you have scaled the peaks of reason, finding clarity in its abstract heights. Mara, you have explored the valleys of experience, finding wisdom in its lived depths." He looked at Jian. "And you, young seeker, have perhaps sensed that the mountain has many trails. Reason can build a map, but experience provides the terrain. Experience can offer 1,000 vistas, but reason helps to understand the landscape. Is one path truer? Or does the most reliable knowledge arise when the mapmaker and the explorer walk together, each informing the other?" The hermit pointed to a barely visible third trail, hidden between the other two, that seemed to spiral upwards, integrating elements of both the sharp ascent and the meandering valley path. Perhaps the truest path is not a choice between reason and experience, but the skillful integration of both, guided by a discerning heart. The hermit's words, like a mountain echo, resonate with a timeless human dilemma. The parable of the two paths, and the hidden third, brings us to a fundamental inquiry that has challenged philosophers, scientists, and spiritual seekers for centuries. Reason versus experience. Which is the more reliable source of knowledge? Is it the clear, cold logic of reason, with its power to deduce, analyze, and construct coherent systems of thought? that offers us the firmest foundation? Or is it the rich, immediate, and undeniable data of experience? What we see, hear, touch, taste, and feel that provides the ultimate test of truth? This is not just an abstract debate for ivory towers. It profoundly impacts how we learn, how we make decisions, how we solve problems, and how we construct our understanding of reality. Do we trust our gut feelings, experience, or our rational analysis, reason, when making a life-altering choice? In science, how do we balance elegant theories, reason, with experimental data, experience? In our spiritual lives, is enlightenment found through intellectual understanding, reason, or through direct, meditative insight, experience? If we rely solely on reason, we risk creating elaborate intellectual castles in the air, detached from the lived realities of the world. We might become like Master Eris, clear in our thoughts, but disconnected from the warmth and complexity of human existence. If we rely solely on experience, we risk being overwhelmed by a flood of raw data, unable to discern patterns, draw meaningful conclusions, or communicate our insights effectively. We might become like Mara, rich in encounters, but perhaps lacking a framework to understand their deeper significance. The quest for reliable knowledge seems to demand a more nuanced approach. How do these two powerful faculties interact? Can they be reconciled? Is one ultimately more fundamental, or do they depend on each other in a dynamic interplay? As the hermit suggested, let us, then, embark on this exploration, not to declare a victor in a supposed contest between reason and experience, but to understand their unique strengths, their potential pitfalls, and the ways in which they might collaborate to guide us towards a more complete and reliable knowledge. The debate between reason and experience as primary sources of knowledge lies at the heart of one of philosophy's oldest and most significant divides: rationalism versus empiricism. Rationalism, championed by thinkers like Plato, René Descartes, Baruch Spinoza, and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, asserts that reason is the chief source and test of knowledge. Rationalists believe that reality itself has an inherently logical structure, and that certain truths can be grasped directly by the intellect, a priori, that is, independent of sensory experience. These truths are not derived from the world. Rather, they are innate ideas or principles that the mind can access through introspection and logical deduction. Plato, for example, argued that our sensory experiences are of a fleeting, imperfect world of appearances. True knowledge, he believed, pertains to the eternal, unchanging realm of forms or ideas, like justice, beauty, goodness, which are accessible only through reason. Our experience might give us opinions, but only reason can lead to genuine understanding. Descartes, in his famous quest for certainty, doubted everything he had learned through his senses, as they could be deceptive. He arrived at his foundational truth, cogito, ergo sum, I think, therefore I am, not through experience, but through an act of pure rational intuition. For Descartes, clear and distinct ideas, perceived by the mind with indubitable certainty, were the hallmark of reliable knowledge. Rationalists often point to mathematics and logic as prime examples of knowledge derived from reason alone. The truths of geometry, e.g., the sum of angles in a triangle is 180 degrees, or logical principles, e.g., it cannot be both B and not B at the same time, seem to be necessary and universal, knowable without needing to go out and measure every triangle or test every proposition empirically. On the other side of the philosophical aisle stands empiricism. Empiricists, such as John Locke, George Berkeley, and David Hume, argue that sensory experience is the ultimate source of all our concepts and knowledge. Locke famously proposed that the mind at birth is a tabula rasa, or blank slate, upon which experience writes. All ideas, even complex and abstract ones, are ultimately derived from, or reducible to simple sensory impressions. For an empiricist, a claim to knowledge must be verifiable through observation and experience. If an idea cannot be traced back to some sensory input, it is suspect. Hume, a particularly rigorous empiricist, even questioned concepts like causality and the self, arguing that we don't directly experience a necessary connection between cause and effect, only a constant conjunction of events. Similarly, he argued that we have no single, continuous impression of a self, only a fleeting bundle of perceptions. Empiricism forms the philosophical bedrock of much of modern science, with its emphasis on observation, experimentation, and the gathering of empirical data. Scientific theories, no matter how elegant or rationally compelling, must ultimately be tested against the tribunal of experience. However, pure empiricism also faces challenges. How can it account for the apparent necessity of mathematical truths? If all knowledge comes from experience, which is always particular and contingent, how can we arrive at universal laws? And our senses themselves are not infallible. They can be tricked by illusions, and our interpretations of sensory data are often theory-laden. Immanuel Kant, a towering figure in philosophy, attempted a revolutionary synthesis of rationalism and empiricism. In his critique of pure reason, Kant argued that while all our knowledge begins with experience, it does not all arise out of experience. He proposed that the mind is not a passive recipient of sensory data, but actively structures our experiences through innate cognitive categories, such as space, time, and causality. These categories are a priori conditions for the possibility of experience itself. Thus, for Kant, knowledge is a product of the interaction between sensory input from experience and the organizing principles of the mind, a form of reason. Kant's synthesis suggests that reason and experience are not mutually exclusive but are, in fact, mutually dependent. As he famously put it, thoughts without content are empty. Intuitions, experiences, without concepts are blind. Reason needs the raw material of experience to have something to think about, and experience needs the organizing frameworks of reason to be intelligible. This philosophical debate, far from being settled, continues to inform how we think about knowledge. It highlights that both reason and experience offer powerful, yet potentially limited, pathways to understanding. The quest for reliable knowledge may lie not in choosing one over the other, but in understanding their distinct contributions and their necessary collaboration. When we turn the DhammaMirror, the wisdom of Buddhist teachings, to the question of reason versus experience, we find a path that deeply values both intellectual understanding and direct experiential realization, seeing them as sequential and complementary stages in the development of liberating wisdom, *paññā*. Buddhist epistemology does not create a stark opposition between reason and experience, but rather outlines a progressive cultivation of knowledge that integrates both. This is often described through the three types of wisdom: suta paññā, cinta paññā, and bhāvanā paññā. Suta paññā is wisdom gained through hearing or learning from an external source. This includes studying sacred texts, listening to teachings from a qualified guide, or acquiring knowledge from wise traditions. This initial stage is akin to receiving information, engaging the intellect, and building a conceptual framework. It involves reason in the sense of comprehending language, understanding concepts, and grasping the initial meaning of the teachings. Master Eris, with his dedication to abstract principles and systems of thought, might find an echo here, though Buddhist teachings would caution against mistaking this conceptual knowledge for the ultimate goal. Next comes cinta paññā, which is wisdom gained through reflection, critical thinking, and intellectual analysis. This is where reason plays a more active role. Having received the teachings, the practitioner contemplates them deeply, examines their internal consistency, explores their implications, and relates them to their own understanding of the world. It involves questioning, analyzing, and reasoning about the concepts learned. This stage helps to clarify doubts, deepen intellectual conviction, and make the teachings one's own at a conceptual level. It's about moving from simply accepting information to truly understanding its logical and philosophical underpinnings. However, for the Buddha, these two forms of wisdom, while essential and valuable, are preliminary. The most profound and transformative knowledge, the wisdom that truly liberates the mind from suffering, is paññā, wisdom born of direct meditative experience and cultivation. This is where the teachings are no longer just concepts or intellectual understandings, but are directly perceived and realized within one's own mind and body. Mara, with her emphasis on lived encounters, touches upon this experiential dimension, though Buddhist meditation refines this into a systematic inner exploration. Practices like mindfulness, *sati*, and insight meditation, *vipassana*, are the primary means for cultivating paññā. Through these practices, one directly observes the nature of reality as it manifests in one's own experience. The impermanence, *and nika*, of all phenomena, their inherent unsatisfactoriness or stress, *dukkha*, and their lack of a fixed, independent self, *anatta*. This is not a conclusion reached through logical deduction alone, nor is it merely an observation of external events. It is a direct, intuitive insight into the fundamental characteristics of existence, experienced moment by moment. For example, one might learn suta and reflect upon cinta, the teaching of impermanence. But it is only through sustained meditative observation of the constant arising and passing away of thoughts, feelings, and sensations, bhāvanā, that the truth of impermanence is deeply, experientially understood, leading to a loosening of clinging and a profound shift in perspective. The Buddha emphasized this experiential verification. He often likened himself to a guide who points out the path, but each individual must walk the path themselves to reach the destination. The Kalama Sutta, again, underscores this. Don't accept teachings merely on authority or logic, but investigate them and know for yourselves. This knowing for oneself is the essence of paññā. Thus, the Buddhist path to reliable knowledge, especially liberating wisdom, is a balanced and integrated one. It begins with learning and conceptual understanding, utilizing reason, deepens through critical reflection and analysis, further engaging reason, and culminates in direct, transformative experience through meditative practice. Reason helps to clear the path and provide a map, but experience is the actual walking of the path and the direct seeing of the landscape. Neither is denigrated. Both are seen as indispensable in their appropriate stages. This approach avoids the pitfalls of relying solely on one faculty. Uninformed experience can be misleading, while reason without experiential grounding can remain superficial and abstract. The synergy of conceptual understanding and direct insight leads to a wisdom that is both profound and practical, capable of transforming not just what we know, but who we are. The hermit on the mountain path pointed not to a choice between reason and experience, but to their integration. This suggests that the journey towards reliable knowledge is not just about understanding philosophical arguments or accumulating experiences, but about an inner shift, a cultivation of the capacity to skillfully weave together the insights of our rational minds with the wisdom of our lived realities. How do we foster this integration? It begins with acknowledging the value of both faculties. We must resist the temptation to exclusively champion one over the other, recognizing that each has its domain of strength and its potential blind spots. Master Eris needed to descend from his abstract peaks to connect with the world, and Mara needed frameworks to make sense of her diverse encounters. One crucial element of this inner shift is the development of metacognition, or thinking about our thinking. This involves becoming aware of our own cognitive processes, how we reason, how we interpret experiences, the assumptions that underlie our thoughts, and the biases that might color our perceptions. When we understand how our own mind works, we are better equipped to use both reason and experience effectively. For instance, reason, while powerful, can be prone to logical fallacies or be used to rationalize pre-existing biases. Cultivating critical thinking skills, the ability to identify assumptions, evaluate arguments, and detect inconsistencies, helps to refine our use of reason, making it a more reliable tool. This is like sharpening a knife so it cuts cleanly and precisely. Similarly, experience, while immediate and compelling, is not always a straightforward guide to truth. Our senses can be deceived, our memories can be faulty, and our interpretations of experiences are often shaped by our beliefs, emotions, and cultural conditioning. Cultivating mindfulness and self-awareness allows us to observe our experiences with greater clarity, distinguishing raw sensory data from the layers of interpretation we add to it. This is like cleaning a lens so it provides a clearer, less distorted view. The integration of reason and experience often happens in a cyclical or iterative process. We might have an experience that sparks a question or a hypothesis. We then use reason to analyze that experience, formulate a tentative understanding, or develop a plan of action. We test that understanding or plan through further experience, observe the results, and then use reason again to refine our understanding. This is the essence of experiential learning and the scientific method. Consider learning a complex skill, like playing a musical instrument. One might study music theory, reason, but true mastery comes from hours of practice, experience, listening to feedback, experience, adjusting one's technique, reason and experience, and developing an intuitive feel for the music, a blend of both. In our emotional and interpersonal lives, this integration is equally vital. We might experience a strong emotion. Reason can help us to understand the potential causes and consequences of that emotion, and to consider different ways of responding. Experience, both past experiences and the direct experience of the present moment, informs our understanding and our choices. A wise response often involves a dialogue between our rational assessment of the situation and our empathetic or intuitive understanding of the human elements involved. Buddhist practices like insight meditation explicitly aim to integrate conceptual understanding with direct experiential insight. One might conceptually understand the teaching of not-self, anatta, through study and reflection, reason, but it is through the direct, moment-to-moment observation of the impersonal, conditioned nature of thoughts, feelings, and sensations, experience, that this understanding becomes a lived reality, a profound inner shift. This integration is not always easy. It requires patience, humility, and a willingness to embrace complexity and uncertainty. It means being comfortable with the idea that our knowledge is always evolving, always a work in progress, shaped by the ongoing dialogue between our capacity for rational thought and the ever-unfolding stream of our lived experiences. Ultimately, the inner shift is about cultivating a holistic way of knowing, one that honors the clarity of the mind and the wisdom of the heart, the power of logic and the richness of lived reality. It's about becoming a more complete human being, capable of navigating the world with both intellectual rigor and experiential depth. As we pause on this journey, the echoes from the mountain paths of reason and experience do not declare a victor, but rather sing a chorus of interdependence. The question was never truly about which path is truer in isolation, but how they might lead to the most reliable knowledge when their strengths are harmonized. We have seen that reason, with its capacity for logic, abstraction, and systematic thought, provides us with powerful tools for analysis, for building coherent models of the world, and for transcending the limitations of immediate perception. It offers clarity, structure, and the ability to generalize. We have also seen that experience, with its directness, its richness, and its undeniable impact, grounds our knowledge in reality, provides the raw data for our understanding, and offers insights that can elude pure logic. It offers vividness, context, and the wisdom of embodiment. The philosophical journey from rationalism to empiricism and towards Kant's synthesis, along with the Buddhist progression from learned knowledge to reflected wisdom to meditative realization, all point towards a similar conclusion. Reliable knowledge is not the exclusive domain of either reason or experience. It arises from their dynamic, iterative, and integrated interplay. Thoughts without the grounding of experience can be empty. Experiences without the illumination of reason can be blind. The hermit's wisdom guides us towards that hidden third path, the path of integration, where the mapmaker and the explorer collaborate, where the head and the heart inform each other. What if the most reliable knowledge is like a well-tuned instrument, where the strings of reason and the resonant body of experience work together to produce beautiful and true music? What if wisdom lies in learning to play this instrument with skill, sensitivity, and a deep appreciation for the unique contribution of each part? Perhaps the journey itself, the ongoing effort to balance and integrate these powerful ways of knowing, is where the deepest understanding is forged, an understanding that is not only reliable, but also relevant, compassionate, and truly transformative. The dialogue between reason and experience is a lifelong conversation, one that shapes our understanding of ourselves and the world in countless ways. If this exploration of their interplay has sparked your own reflections or offered new insights, we invite you to continue the journey with us at the Noble Wisdom Path. Subscribe to our channel for more inquiries into the art of living with wisdom and clarity. If this episode has resonated with you, please offer it a like. And we warmly encourage you to share your own thoughts in the comments below. How do you find the balance between reason and experience in your own quest for reliable knowledge? Which do you tend to lean on? And how might you cultivate a greater integration? May your path be illuminated by both the clear light of reason and the rich wisdom of experience, leading you to an ever-deepening understanding.